Hey, beautiful soul, welcome. This is Rochelle with the Healing Rose, and this is a look at what tools and books I am utilizing through Avalon season. So for me, Avalon season runs from the autumn equinox up into the sort of Halloween period. So it's a time right now where in my location, everything's very misty and we get a lot of fog. We're high enough up the mountain where really it's not fog, it's the cloud bank that sits kind of low on the mountain, and so that sort of Mists of Avalon feeling, I tend to reread that book this time of year. And usually I like to tuck myself in with this book, Avalon Within, by Jaina Telendrew, A Sacred Journey of Myth, Mystery, and Inner Wisdom. And she has just had this beauty come out, The Ninefold Way of Avalon, Walking the Path of the Priestess. So this is the book that I'm currently working my way through. It's almost 500 pages. And it says, follow the mythic map into modern practice. The path of the Avalonian priestess is as unique as those who walk it. And now you can learn how to apply the 9 energies of this path in service to the goddess, the community, and the self. So she delves into the rich historical and cultural information that forms the Avalonian stream of tradition, especially the ninefold sisterhood found in Celtic lands and beyond. And then she goes into the sort of modern pathways that she has created, inspired by ancient customs. So it's really, really interesting. I think about 3 chapters in or so, and I find it really fascinating how she delves into all these different historical connections and writings that evolve the myth of Avalon through time and history. So I'm really enjoying this read right now. And usually I'm a little bit more into the fiction this time of year than nonfiction. All right, but let's take a look at the tarot decks. So feeling into this sort of Avalon, misty, moon, magical energy. Right now I'm working with the Moon Dust Tarot by Florence Saul. So it says a deck and guidebook to activate ethereal lunar magic. And I know there's a few flip throughs of this around. It is a large tarot deck. It is beautiful though for a mass market deck. We have the gilding. We have this beautiful embossed backs with this lovely floral and lavender moon with these beautiful, is that gardenias on there, hyacinths. It's just absolutely lovely. I have not yet gone through very much of the guidebook. I've had a quick flip through it. I do like to, when I first get a deck, spend a lot of time just working really intuitively for the first little bit before I begin to really delve into the guidebook. And I'm really, really enjoying this sort of, it's an interesting energy. We have a lot of this sort of romanticized medieval imagery. All right, so it's a very, it has this lovely ethereal quality to it, without being time specific. Interestingly enough, I am so fascinated that there are so many of the pentacles that are so very pippish, yet the other suits definitely have more scenes in them than the pentacles. Like, you know, it's very, very, very interesting to me that we have all this scenery in all of the other suit cards, but pentacles is, a lot of the cards are quite pippish, right? So we still have a little bit of that with the Seven of Swords. So it's interesting, right? If you do not have a lot of tarot background, I don't know that it's necessarily a beginner deck unless you're a person that is willing to spend the time going through the guidebook, because certain cards, there's not a lot in the symbolism to help you, but it's really gorgeous. It has this really lovely sort of a lot of that kind of like violet flame energy in it. I'm just really loving it, and it's connecting beautifully with some of the oracles that I'm working with. They just are, I mean, it's working absolutely fantastically with them. So I'm really, really pleased with this deck right now. It's really singing to me. All right, we have the Hush Tarot, which was in my today's practice. So I do tend to alternate a different tarot deck each day, and right now I have 3 tarot decks I'm working through. So this was the one I was working with this morning, the Hush Tarot by Jeremy Hush. His artwork is really beautifully intricate, extremely talented as an artist. The subject matter is macabre. It's a little spooky. It's a little, sometimes, I was not going to get this deck. I'm going to be honest. I was not going to get this deck because of the disjointed, sort of uncomfortable quality of some of this imagery that's in here. I do really love the color palette though. Like, I love this king. Like, what an interesting for a king card, you know. A lot of animals. There's a few people that are featured. A lot of birds. A lot of this interesting macabre kind of juxtaposition between the animal life and the death, the life, there's a vibrancy, there's a movement in so many of the cards. I'm really, really enjoying it, I have to say. And I really like this color palette. It has a really interesting quality to it. Like, this is a particularly strange sort of creature that's happening for the Page of Swords. This card, to me, weirdly stands out as feeling like it shouldn't be in this deck. Like, it just feels like it doesn't quite fit with the rest of the deck. The rest of the deck is so, like, this minotaur robot skeletal creature with this small child. It's so very interesting. Yeah, super interesting deck. And what I'm finding really fascinating, right? I was not going to get it. I've never been drawn to the energy of this deck. I've looked at it and thought, beautiful, talented artwork, not my thing. Didn't want it. And walked into my local metaphysical shop, White Lioness Metaphysical in Penticton, and they are fabulous in there. I absolutely love going in there. And yeah, it was on the shelf and it just sort of leapt out at me. And so it's working so well with the Oracle decks that I'm using right now. It's absolutely brilliant. All right, the other deck that is new to my practice. This is it's got an odd name, the Tarot of the Hidden Realms. So it's been around for a while. I had a copy a decade or so ago, and I gave it away because it just did not really resonate with me. And so now I've got it back because, you know, now it does, which to me is quite interesting. It's got a really interesting fairy, woodsy, sort of Morgan Le Fay magical quality to it. And something about this deck is it's just singing to me right now. It's really, really beautiful. A very similar kind of color palette to the Hush Tarot. So maybe it's just the colors I'm drawn to. And sometimes I definitely can be like that. There can be, you know, certain colors that really pull me at different times of the year. But there's something about the energy of this, something about the very fey energy of it that to me is really just sort of screaming. It's just really sort of that strong fey connection with Avalon is really kicking in. So I'm really enjoying these two decks with the oracles. All right, so where's my oracle decks? They're in a stack here. These are in no particular order. They are sort of, all three decks are working with most of these oracles except for this one. This one is working incredibly well with the Tarot of the Hidden Realms. So this is the Fairies Oracle by Brian Froud. And it does have some nudity in the deck, so fair warning. And then we have these really beautiful, all the singer cards. This really fabulous, fun energy that just squeaks through this deck. And it doesn't play nice with most tarot decks, I find. This is the deck that likes to be used on its own, or it likes to be, it only seems to come out at certain times of the year. And so it's one of those ones where it's, normally I only play with it in January. Honestly, January, February, this deck always just sort of calls to me from the collection. It has to come out and play for a couple of months in the coldest part of the year, and then it goes away because the deck does seem to have a very cold energy to it. And it is working so incredibly well with Tarot of the Hidden Realms. Palette-wise, they work very well together, but there's something about the Fae energy between the two decks that is just connecting and working beautifully, which is fascinating for me because I've never really had a tarot deck that has worked with these Froud oracles that I have. So I'm kind of really excited for that. I haven't attempted to work with it with a Hush Tarot. It doesn't seem to want to. It only seems to want to pair with this one. So in and of itself, that I find that quite interesting. Because generally I usually have oracles that I feel will work with all the decks together. All right, so let's pull this one out. So this is the Wild Wisdom of Fairy by Lucy Cavendish. And this is working really well with the Hush Tarot. It's working really well with this deck. So I feel like the colors aren't jarring to my eyes. The messages coincide well. It's a very lovely cooperative feeling. So this is my original Wild Wisdom of the Fairy that came in a big brown box set. I know the newer edition has a pink border on it instead of the brown, which I kept thinking about, like, actually taking this and cutting it down and making it more manageable because I just never use it. But I think it's because it just never had a deck that it wanted to work with before, and it really works beautifully with Hush Tarot, and it really works quite lovely with Tarot of the Hidden Realms. So I'm enjoying the fact that the fairies are getting to come out and play this season a little earlier than they usually want to connect, and so that's really fun for me that they're all playing so nicely together. Okay, so we have the Spiritual Awakening 52 Universal Law Oracle cards by Erin Haskell. And it is quite the mouthful of a title for this deck. It has these beautiful, lovely moon phase backs that actually this is very reminiscent for me of the, what is it? Not Star Child. Starseed Oracle by Rebecca Campbell. This deck is working in such a lovely, lovely way with the Hush Tarot. It's beautiful to have the two decks together, and they have a very cooperative energy. So I'm really appreciating the pairing of these together. They're just absolutely working just so beautifully, which is really interesting because there's so much energy. These kind of doorways, right? These doorways repeat themselves through a lot of this deck, this sort of doorway portal energy. And so to me, it's really quite fascinating when you find, something that wants to actually work with that. I mean, palette-wise, they go together beautifully, but they're also quite complementary energy-wise, which I did not expect. I didn't think that the Hush Tarot would work as nicely for me as it does. And so this also is pairing beautifully with the Moon Dust Tarot. A little bit interesting contrast because there's so much purple in the Moon Dust Tarot. And I've not been using it too much with the Tarot of the Hidden Realm. But color palette wise, it also is pairing up quite beautifully. And I'm really enjoying this as an oracle. I've had it for a little while now. And every card does say the law of, which I find to be really repetitively almost irritating at this point. But I do like that there's a little phrase on here. So, the law of love, the law of habit, the law of emergent evolution, the law of rhythm, the law of intention. It's like you could have just had abundance, intention, pure potential. The law of beforehands to me feels awkward. Awkward is I think the word, but as an oracle, I'm finding it's functioning very well. It's giving really good readings, and so I mean that's really all we can ask, right? Okay, so we have the Intuitive Whispers Oracle. So this is a first deck from Maud Hurst. The artwork is by Laurie Mena, so you might recognize her from the Moonology Manifestation, and I think she also did the Law of Positivism Oracle. It's really beautiful artwork, and I'm loving this because again, you know what? It's that portal energy, and I think that's something that I really sort of feed into myself, that sort of transportive energy that wants to take you away, and everything sort of has that feeling of like, stepping through a stargate, or it really feels, I don't know, there's something about it, right? I love decks with doorways and portals, and there's something about them. They really connect with me. I mean, especially right now, this time of year. And so when we feel that the thinning of the veil is already beginning, right? And so we're kind of feeling into that energy where it's like we're connecting with an ethereal realm. These decks really, this is a beautiful deck, I have to say. This is working incredibly well with the Moon Dust Tarot. It's a really, really lovely pairing. I'm finding that I quite enjoy seeing them together. They are large cards though, and so that is one of the things that I find with large tarot and large oracle. They are lovely to look at though. If we're pairing them together and layering the decks, it's just a really wonderful pairing for me. That's also giving good readings, and that's the point really. If it doesn't read well for you, it doesn't matter how beautiful the oracle is or the tarot is. If it's not if it's not working, it's not working, right? And so sometimes we just don't know until we spend a bit of time, right? Until we spend that bit of time working through figuring out how it reads for us and what's happening with those connections there. And so I know it might seem like a lot, but here's the reality of what my practice looks like in a given day. I will sit every morning or afternoon, depends if my day's really chaotic. Sometimes it's before I go to bed in the evening. Everybody else has gone to sleep and I have some quiet time and I can just sit and read. And when I read, I will take the tarot that I'm learning with and do a full spread, right? So, maybe this deck might be that deck, and I will do a full Celtic cross, 11, 12 cards, and go through the book for each and every card. So it is a little bit time consuming. And then I will sit with the sort of energy of that reading and then go, okay, and then I will do 2 smaller reads with other decks asking the same question or questing into the same energy and see how the readings parallel that first one. So how accurate is that first reading? Is the theme repeated? Is it coming through clearly with another tarot deck? Is it coming through clearly with another oracle deck if I'm doing different spreads? So I'll generally do 3 spreads with 3 different decks. And I do that every day. And so, it's a little... It might be a little bit more intensive maybe than some people have for their personal practice. A lot of people they get a deck and I'm going to work with this deck this month and I'm just going to pull a card each day from it. And I do have decks that I will pull a single card from, right? So we have the, what's it called? Healing Waters Oracle. I don't have the boxes in front of me right now. And the Ancient Stones Oracle. Both of these are by Rebecca Campbell and the same artist, Katie Louise, I think is her name. So this we literally have the Isle of Avalon here. So as opposed to some other water oracle decks that I have, specifically the Ocean Dreams is normally my go-to, which has a very Pacific, warm, lovely, sunny, Hawaiian tropical ocean feel to it. This has that cool northern waters feeling to it. And so I am really enjoying working with, I'm alternating between these two because here's the thing, even if I don't always completely resonate with the art, I certainly did not resonate well with the Rose Oracle and I was so excited for it. And then I was so disappointed by it. It's still read very well. And what I like about these is that they don't necessarily have all the cards repeating the same thing over and over and over again. So we have these lovely images, right? This one actually has, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Somebody, posted it's a really great deck. You should give it a try. And I was like, oh, well, maybe, when Hay House had a sale. So I thought, well, I'll get it on sale. It was, I think, $12 or something. They had their big clear out sale. They do. And so I decided to pick it up. And actually, it's working for me really well. And then we have the Ancient Stones, which again, for me, is really evoking that old world energy for me. It really, that feeling, that Stonehenge, Glastonbury, we have this Stone of Destiny, Excalibur, King Arthur's sword. We have that sort of feeling of connecting with an energy of Avalon. And so there's a couple cards in here that really did not resonate with me. I saw them and I was like, ugh, every time. So I took them out. I couldn't even tell you which cards they were, but they are gone from my version of the deck. They're sitting in the box in case I pass the box along to someone else, if someone else becomes the keeper of this deck. And, you know, that's one of the things. You can absolutely take a deck, and if there's cards where you just look at it and you're like, oh, why? You can pull that card out. You can get rid of it, you know? I really, really liked the Work Your Light Oracle. It is probably my most used Oracle deck because it seems to be the one that I always have clients connecting with. And so, you know, it's just started to feel, by the Rose Oracle, it started to feel like her decks were becoming repetitive. And I really like that this was a very different feeling and very different phrases, a very different energy coming through with this deck. So it's not just a repeat of the other decks, which I liked. And so these two kind of rotate in daily practice. It'll be, you know, I'll read with my tarot, and then I will grab one of the other Oracle decks, and then I'll do a read with these. Or I'll lay out the tarot, and then I'll lay this out as well, and then read and see how the layers are going. So these ones are right now in the daily rotation. I was trying to pick just one, but I'm honestly torn between the two. I'm using this a little bit more. The Healing Waters is getting a little bit more use, definitely, than I expected it to be. I thought, oh, well, I'll try it, and if I don't like it, I'm just going to pass it along to someone else, right? And I'm quite surprised with how much use it's actually getting. So, you know, we can't always tell by just going like, oh yeah, that one, it's not for me. You never know when something is just going to suddenly hit you and resonate really, really strongly. All right. And so I think we would be remiss to not mention these two. They're not in my daily practice. These are pretty much once a week. I will do a reading with this at this time of year. We have the Mists of Avalon Oracle and the Avalon Magic little mini deck. They're both by Rose and Sarah, illustrated by Nadia Turner. So it's the same images between both decks. Different messages though, which is interesting. So our cards, we only get 36 of them in this little deck. And we have 4 keywords on there along with the title and a number. So if you're incorporating numerology into your practice, you have a number to work with. If you only draw one card, the guidebook is excellent. And then in here, we have all of the same card images. So we have the places of Avalon. We have the characters from Avalonian myth. As you can see, we literally have the same image. It's just enlarged slightly, and so it's that way through the entire thing. So we have the Chalice Well, we have the Glastonbury Tor, we have the Abbey, the Red Spring, the White Spring, we have King Arthur, Morgan Le Fay, we have the goddesses of Avalonian tradition, Rhiannon and Bronwyn, and so they're all kind of there, right? And interestingly enough, we get one message in here, and you will get a very different message on the back of these cards. So with these little ones, what I tend to do is I tend to just give them a shuffle, and then I will just cut the deck and then take that card, or cut the deck and then take the top card. And so that way I'm not picking a card, because if you just fan them out and choose one and you've used the deck a million times, your subconscious is choosing your message for you, right? As opposed to it being very random. So that's one of my little pet peeves with cards that have, you know, they don't have neutral backs. And so whenever we are working with them, it's a little bit more challenging. So that is what is going on with my practice right now. The tools that I'm using and the energies. I'm sort of really feeling into, you know, we're at the end of the harvest. We're into this misty time. And so it's really nice to just have some decks that feel into that misty Avalonian fairy fae energy that is sort of swirling around before we get into spooky season. And it's all like monster decks and Halloween and pumpkins and pumpkin spice and all that sort of energy. This is a really sort of internal, contemplative, right? So let's take a look. So for my practice, I would go, where's my energy sitting right now? So we have the moon. Okay. And the next card, what is it that your soul wants you to know about sitting in that energy? Interestingly enough, the Five of Wands, right? So while we're focusing on our intuition, the images coming from our dreams, feeling into that sort of moody energy, what is conflictive? What is rising up? Where do you feel the conflict, right? And then, oh, there's that freaking Queen again. The Queen of Cups, no matter what deck I'm using, has come out in every reading for me for 2 weeks. So the Queen of Cups energy is what is rising, right? And then I'll go through and do the whole reading, like what's falling away, what gift am I bringing to this situation, what am I manifesting, what's my next step, where's the past influence that's influencing that next step, what do I need to know as I move forward, where's the fear, where's the outcome. And so I'll do all of those cards. Then what are we pulling next? Well, I'm really kind of feeling this, right? So I might just go, okay, fair enough, and start another reading. But then I also might go, okay, well, all right, let's see, what's the layer that goes with this? And so where am I right now? Oh, the law of giving and receiving. All right, so we're clearing out energy. How are we sharing? How am I sharing my intuitive insights? How am I connecting with the energy of the dreams? Is this taking energy from me? Am I feeling into that law of reciprocity? All right. So with the conflict, we have the law of action. Get out of your comfort zone and take bold action today. So avoiding any sort of strife or misgivings by actually, interestingly enough, the wolf and the moon are there, which to me feeds into this moon card, right? Let's see with this Queen energy. The law of manifestation. Let go of trying to control life and allow miracles. Okay, all right, Queen energy. And so I'm playing with layers like this in my practice and seeing how the decks sing together. I kind of really like this. I'm going to leave this out to contemplate for a little while and see, to see what it is we might be missing, right? And so it's this time of year where we're feeling into these different energies, and these are just the decks working for me. I'm so interested to hear about what you might be using in your practice right now, or, if you want to see a little bit more in-depth look at what I'm doing in my own personal practice. I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fabulous week, and take care.